like the eternal city that is Rome. Rising upwards like a heavenly choir.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this show. This is a very special show because it's our 40th episode, and this so happens to be the anniversary of my baptism, my confirmation, and my first Holy Communion. So 1 year ago today, I was coming into the Catholic Church, and so one of those very big events in the last year was going to World Youth Day. So Steve Kerekes, who is joining us today, knows all about World Youth Day. He's the founder of worldyouthday.com, the founder of JMJ Pilgrimages, which is the main traveling company for youth going to World Youth Day. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
For sure. So, let's just jump right into it. For people who know nothing about World Youth Day, what is it? How did you first hear about it? What was the first World Youth Day you attended?
Sure. So World Youth Day was an initiative by St. John Paul II when he wanted to bring together young people. Actually, there was an initiative by the United Nations called the Year of the Youth, and he wanted to have a gathering during that year. And he brought together young people to Rome, to the Vatican, and it went so well. He said, we're going to do this every year. And he started bringing in young people. We're going to go big and call it World Youth Day. And his advisors actually told him not to do it because it was kind of a new initiative and they didn't think anyone would really show up, or it would be kind of an embarrassment to the church because the Vatican doesn't like to try new things. They say the Vatican doesn't like to baptize, the Vatican likes to confirm. So which means that if it's already going well, they might jump in and say, hey, good job, or something like that. But John Paul II was all about initiative and reaching out and trying new things. And so bringing the young people together, his idea was to capture the spirit of the youth, kind of the joie de vivre, which is it's more than just the sum of the parts, right? If you bring together a million young people, it's more than just a million people. It has an amplifying effect that everyone sees a much larger vision of what the church is, the universality of the church, and then they bring this back with all this energy and spirit and love that they've experienced, bring it back to their home communities. So this started in the mid-1980s, 85, 86 in Rome. And then 87, John Paul II said, let's take this show on the road. And he went to Argentina, and in Buenos Aires, they hosted the first International World Youth Day. And this is what World Youth Day is known for, because every 2 or 3 and sometimes even 4 years, the World Youth Day goes to a different place. But it's called World Youth Day because it started off as a single day, even though now it lasts pretty much a week in whatever country it goes to. So my first World Youth Day was in Denver when the World Youth Day came to the United States. And it was actually kind of a providential experience. Back in '93, nobody really knew what it was. I had never been here. There was no internet, so there was no international news. There was really nothing tangible to go on. Apparently, that it was being promoted through youth groups and youth ministries around the nation, but I was in college and I wasn't part of a youth group. So I was graduating that year with I was going to be a pilot, a commercial pilot, and I was praying, asking God, what should I do with my life? Like, what do you want me to do? Because apparently, well, there was a recession, then there was a war, the Gulf War, and pilots were unemployed left and right. So I thought, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. So I asked God, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I woke up one morning with an answer as clear as day. It was like I'd never received an answer in my life before like this. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't a dream. It was just a clear answer. And I woke up and I felt God had said to me, go to World Youth Day in Denver. And there you'll meet someone who'll be with you for the rest of your life. And I thought, wow, what's World Youth Day? Because again, no idea, except maybe I had seen a poster somewhere in the back of the church with all the other things, bingo and World Youth Day and whatever, on the bulletin boards. But so I looked it up. The Holy Father was coming to Denver. All these young people were coming. And I thought, that's great. But Lord, you didn't answer my question. My question was, what am I supposed to do with my life when I graduate here coming up in June of '93? And so I prayed every day and asked God for that answer. And I woke up on Good Friday, 3 months later, Same thing. An answer was clear as day. I felt God said to me, go to World Youth Day in Denver, and there your mission in life will begin. And so I thought, okay, that's, I guess, as much of an answer as I'm going to get from God. I'm going to go to World Youth Day and see what happens. And that was my entire goal in life upon graduation. So, to keep it really short, I went to World Youth Day in Denver. I showed up. I didn't know you had to register. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have anything. I just drove in. First house door I knocked on, the door opens, and there she is, the one I would be with for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
This girl that I met the very first day as I walked in there, we got married 8 months later. We've been married 20 years now, and we have 9 children.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, who was that person that you were meeting? I was guessing it was going to be Jesus Christ, but your wife was also a good surprise. And so,
yeah, and I didn't know either. I really had no idea what that meant. What does Jesus mean by this? I thought, me a lifelong friend or something. I just had no idea.
Yeah, so really digging deeper into that first experience, what were some of the things that stood out to you about this, the biggest Catholic event of the year? Every year it happens. So what were some of those lasting things that you remember from that first World Youth Day experience? How did it inflame you with the spirit of evangelization, of wanting to get involved further?
Yeah, so John Paul II was, he was the Holy Father, of course. He's the vicar of Christ on earth. So we have a certain respect for his office. But he, as a person, was an incredible witness and example of love itself. Like, the reason that he is so inspiring to so many people is because he never let us down, right? You see all sorts of people who maybe become, get to a certain position, or maybe they're well known, and then they fall with some scandal, whatever it is. But he never let us down. He called us at that event. He called us to a life of heroic virtue, and heroic virtue is the only thing that truly inspires a young person. It's not mediocrity. It's not doing good or being nice or anything else. It is heroic virtue, something that we really have to lay down our lives for, something we strive for, something that we have this craving for, something great. We're all made for greatness. And we'll never experience that with mediocrity. And so calling us out of mediocrity to a life of heroic virtue, right? To be the hero. That was really what stood out at that event to me, and why he seemed to inspire countless people. And for me at that particular event, it was very powerful.
Yeah, and I would really share the same experience of just being surrounded by so many Catholics at my first World Youth Day last summer in Portugal, of being surrounded by like 1.5 million Catholics coming from a small town in Kentucky, and then really being immersed in the universal church. And so I think at an event like the Olympics, they're all going to compete against one another, but at World Youth Day, they're all coming to be united in joy. So that joy is really what resonates with me. What do you see about that joy? What about that joy stands out to you from the universal church coming together?
Well, so when it comes to, I'm going to talk just a bit about World Youth Day and how it relates to joy. But World Youth Day itself, I didn't really answer the question of what is it. It's really an encounter with Jesus Christ, together with the Holy Father and young people from all over the world. And so when John Paul II was trying to capture that spirit of youth, he was instilling joy as part of this experience. And so joy naturally comes from the Holy Spirit, right? It's a gift of the Holy Spirit. And so he knew that in focusing the encounter on Jesus Christ himself, together with the Holy Father, with the young people encountering Christ, that is the center and the heart and the summit of World Youth Day, which all points together. Like, everything ends up leading towards the Saturday evening vigil, which ends up in silent adoration of 1 million, 2 million, or in some cases 5 million people. This is the source and summit of our faith. And this is the focal point and the high point of World Youth Day itself. And from this naturally comes this experience of deep peace and joy that we take with us. All that excitement and everything that comes with that experience of all the young people from the world is one of the characteristics of that is joy. And you see it everywhere. Like if you go to, in some World Youth Days, there'll be subway trains or elevated trains going by, and you hear it coming because of the singing. Like you hear them singing all the way as they pass across the bridges, and it goes off. And the local people are stunned by the joy because they're not used to that on their morning commute, hopping on the subway and riding to the city to go to work or whatever. But to hear people be so joyful and come together for something that is greater than themselves. And it's not it's not the World Cup, it's not some big giant drinking festival, it's not it's not whatever. They have this impression of young people coming together. These people are coming together and experiencing true joy.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And so I don't want to skip too far ahead in your story about founding JMJ, but do you have any examples of people that you noticed either being pilgrims or just local people around World Youth Day who've come to know Christ in a greater sense or to really experience joy at World Youth Day? Any examples come to mind?
There's many examples, but for example, the local community, one family in particular stands out right off the top of my head, and that's a young man in Brazil when World Youth Day came to Rio. And I have to go to the World Youth Day cities in advance a number of times to prepare. So I meet different people and I start to connect people. And then I bring in faithful, dynamic leaders from all over the world to come in and help young people through the experience with us, through the experience of World Youth Day. And so I was working with a young man who had just come into the church. He had probably been a Catholic for about a year, and his family, it was just not, faithful in any way. They had never even been baptized and I think most of them hadn't been baptized. So they just weren't aware. But World Youth Day came in and they didn't really know what to expect. They hear a lot of things and they have ideas from what they've read in the media. But just to experience that and to be there close to the Holy Father who came to Copacabana Beach for the events and for the final Mass in Rio. At that event, this young man decided that he felt he had a call to the priesthood, and he was going to start exploring seminaries right after World Youth Day. His mother, just being there near the Holy Father, announced that she wanted to be baptized, and this had never come across her mind in her life. And she wanted her marriage reconciled with her husband. And that wasn't the only family. There were a number of families, like people running in the hotels and the hostels that we were working with and staying in. Same thing. The managers, people working there, they went back to the church. They went to confession. They wanted to reconcile their marriage with the church. They had a lot of peripheral things. And this is outside of the participants of World Youth Day. But World Youth Day itself, more vocations to the priesthood, to religious life, and oftentimes even marriage, but priesthood and religious life in particular, more vocations come or are discovered or confirmed at this event than any other event in the world.
Yeah, and I heard a statistic from the American event last year in Portugal. It was like 25% of all religious vocations, people pursuing those once attended at least one World Youth Day. Something crazy like that, something unbelievable. Yeah, going back a little bit to what led you to starting JMJ Pilgrimages. Why did you want to share this experience with others?
Sure. So I went to World Youth Day, as I mentioned, just on that inspiration, and I didn't have any knowledge or understanding of what it was or that you had to register or anything else. I just showed up. And then obviously I figured out what it was, and my wife and we got married 8 months later. And then we wanted to go to the next World Youth Day, which was in Manila in the Philippines, about a year and a half after Denver. So only 18 months later. But we were married and we decided we're going to do this. We're going to raise money. We're going to make rosaries and sell them and do what we could to raise the money to go. And so we ended up in Manila in January of '95. And that was also an incredible experience, very different than Denver because of the culture and the setting and situation, and also the numbers, like astounding numbers of people. This is where there were 5 to perhaps 8 million people at the final events.
The
on
biggest
Saturday and
gathering
Sunday
of people ever, I believe, in the
for a
Guinness
single
World
event.
Record.
Yes. Largest event in human history for a single event. Now, they say larger gatherings at like the Ganges River in India, but that's over the course of 40 miles and they all, over the course of a weekend. But this is one place, one time, one event. Just incredible. So then from there, after World Youth Day in Manila, I began teaching high school. I gave up the idea of flying because after I met my wife, I realized I don't want to be gone half the time as a pilot, 60% of my time on the road. And I hadn't even been thinking of marriage or family life before that, just thinking of myself and thinking of adventure and thinking of whatever it was. So I decided I became a high school teacher, and it was an interesting path because I don't have any classes in education. I had no intention of becoming a teacher, and so therefore I was very different than other teachers. I didn't have their methodologies, but man, if I had an interest in something, I could definitely teach it and inspire it. And so that was the whole point. And when I got there, it was a brand new school in California, and we didn't have a whole lot of books to start with. Meaning like brand new school, they just started that year. I was the first teacher they hired. And so I told stories, and I told my students, if you work hard and we pray and you study hard, I'll help you. We'll raise the money and I'll take you to the next World Youth Day in Paris. And they were really excited about that. And most of the parents were not as excited. They thought, oh, we've heard these promises before. These things never. And after a few months of continuing and starting to work towards this and raising money, some of the parents were surprised. They're like, "Oh, you're serious? You actually think you're going to take these people to Paris to World Youth Day?" And I said, "No, I'm absolutely serious. I'm going to take them all. Whoever wants to go." And so we did. We raised the money and we went to Paris. I took them to Rome. Also, we had all these experiences in Lourdes and Assisi, and then we did the same thing for the next World Youth Day, which was in Rome in the year 2000, so during the Great Jubilee. And then it continued. I did it in 2002 in Toronto, but at that point, other schools and churches started asking. They're like, "Hey, your students come home with such a great experience, and they're so moved by this experience. Can you take our kids, take our youth, take our class, whatever it is, youth ministry or campus ministry, take our kids with you?" And so for Toronto, I started taking other groups. And then after that, in Germany, it started to grow exponentially. That's when we actually launched as a formal organization in the year 2000 because people started asking. And so we planned for 2 years for Toronto as an organization while I was still teaching. And then I went full time with the organization in 2002 and have been doing that nonstop ever since.
Yeah, and so skipping ahead many years, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but before the show, you told me that you're helping prepare for the National Eucharistic Congress next summer in Indiana. And so
Right.
what potential do you see in that event? Is that going to be like another World Youth Day for America?
So the Eucharistic Congress was designed or was thought up kind of as by the U.S. Conference of Bishops as a focal point of re-evangelizing not just the church, but the culture, but truly within the church. Because how many Catholics believe in the true presence of the Blessed Sacrament? And whatever, they have statistics to say, oh, it's 30% or something. But really, that's the 30% who go to Mass on Sunday. It's not like you say all the Catholics and most of them don't go to Mass. They're not going to, obviously, it's because they don't understand. They don't have an understanding of what the Holy Eucharist is. So as a focal point, how are we going to revive Catholicism in this country? It's going to start with the Holy Eucharist. And from there, everything goes outwards, right? Everything spreads out. So we re-evangelize within the churches and then outside the churches into the Catholics who have fallen away and then into the culture from there. So it is a revival. They're calling it the National Eucharistic Revival sometimes. And so it really is that. It's also in preparation for the coming year. So it's a year of prayer, starting with that Congress of the Eucharistic Congress. The following year is another Jubilee. 2025 is a holy year, a year of favor from the Lord that the Holy Father has declared for the entire church all over the world. And so it's a year of prayer that we launch from this Congress through the prayer and into this year of grace, to be taken out into the culture. And so that's I wouldn't say it's like a World Youth Day because it's if there are only 80,000 people show up, it's kind of small.
Yeah.
But it does have a certain characteristic to it, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And yeah, and I think the reason we were asked to help with this is because we have such a vast experience working with young people, especially in if they want to come and do some type of simple lodging. We've done this many times all over the world, and so we have the logistical know-how to handle this for them.
Yeah. So going into like the actual World Youth Day experience once more, my experience was sleeping on a basketball gym floor. And so I don't think people understand just how crazy things get just when you put so many people together. I think Lisbon had a population of maybe 500,000 people, and so 1.5 million people traveling to that city. Things got really congested really fast. So I don't know where I'm going with that exactly, but the media doesn't really talk about World Youth Day. You don't see World Youth Day on the news. Most Catholics don't even know about it. So, what do you think some of the common misunderstandings about the actual World Youth Day experience are? A lot of people would probably guess it's kind of like a concert or something like that, but I would say it's like actually a spiritual experience. So, I'll let you continue along on that point.
Yeah, so I think there's two approaches. One, the secular media, they have their own angle on everything, and they have their own narrative. They like to talk about, where they hate the church or where the church is bad, and so they keep saying those things no matter what. And then there's the Catholic media, and so the Catholic media oftentimes, depending on where the Catholic media is coming from, if they have a certain particular view of the church, or if they think that something is bad in the church and they don't like World Youth Day, they're going to go to World Youth Day and try to find something bad. If it's really just reporting on what's happening, then you see a whole different flavor of the news, the way it's reported. So I would say, what was the second question you asked? I'm sorry, aside from the media?
Yeah, so like what is the misunderstanding even amongst Catholics
Okay,
who really don't know what World Youth Day is? Like, I kind of
right.
gave the example of a concert. That's what people
Yeah.
expect. But as you said, you had no idea what World Youth Day was when you first went. But what did you discover about World Youth Day that you would like to make clear for people who might be interested in going in the future?
Yeah, so World Youth Day is really a festival of joy, and it takes over the entire city. So you'll have major events during the week. Let's say an opening mass on Tuesday with the local archbishop, and then welcoming of the Holy Father on Thursday. These are just the big events. Stations of the Cross on Friday with the Holy Father, and then Saturday, Sunday is the final events. It's usually in a different location than during the week. So it's usually just a little bit outside the city where everyone takes a pilgrimage out to a certain location, and then they spend the night outside. So that evening is the vigil with the Holy Father. It's 2 or 3 hours of testimony, of witness, of Holy Father giving a talk, of silent adoration, of music. So it's a whole production in a sense, but it's really the focal point of the event, the major address of the Holy Father to the young people. And then everyone spends the night, and the next morning he comes back for Sunday morning Mass. And after Mass, he announces the location of the next one, invites everyone to that, and then World Youth Day is over. Everyone slowly works their way back to their accommodations in the city, and then starts to filter out. The 1.5 million in Lisbon started to filter out that day. They started hopping on planes and trains and start working their way out. But it's really a festival of joy, and there's hundreds of different events that happen, smaller events in different places, aside from the major events that happen during the week. So you can choose within your group what you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to experience. But because it's citywide and there are so many people using the transit, you can really probably only get to 3 things in a day, right? You can't do everything on the list of possibilities, but if you choose 3 things, and you get those done, that's pretty much all you can handle. But everywhere you go, you have an experience. Like, for example, these minor events are hosted by certain organizations or movements, or different organizations within the church typically, and they all have gifts to offer. They all have things to do, to give, and every one of them can be powerfully moving. Each one of them in and of themselves. Plus, then you have it's all stacking on top of each other. And occasionally you'll read something in the news, saying, oh, this happened. There was, someone with an agenda was over here on the side, and they had a mass that was celebrated for something immoral, right? And 12 people showed up. Oh, and it was terrible. But, the other 1.5 million people had no idea. And that's not an official event. That was not happening. It wasn't a World Youth Day event. Just because a few people have an agenda and they try to get themselves in there, in the media. And sometimes people will look for that and say, oh, I knew it was terrible. I knew it.
Yeah, there's really a lot of pessimism out there. Like, you return home from World Youth Day after experiencing such a powerful event, and then see like people fascinated that weren't even there about the smallest things that no one there had any idea about until they got home after. So that is sad. But yeah, you brought up management of this event, like the organization within the city, like the entire government getting behind this. And so I'm kind of curious about just your side of things with JMJ. What's it like to prepare for a World Youth Day? How many years of preparation? What type of preparation? And how stressful is it?
So the preparation starts right away. So we started working in Seoul before it was announced. And that's only because, not that we have an inside information or track on where it's going to be, but there's always, ideas. It might be here, it might be there. So we work in both places or all the places, and start talking to people on the ground and getting things ready just in case that would be announced. So I'll be actually leaving for Seoul next week to talk to the local organizing committee and to talk with other people in the area, the shrines, and some of the logistical operations, so the lodging and the bus companies and things like that. But typically when we go and talk to the local organizing committee, this is the organization that will run the World Youth Day locally in that city. Every single time it goes to a new city, and those people have never done this before. So what they don't have is experience running the largest event in the world, let alone whatever. But this is huge. So what we do as part of worldyouthday.com is we go and advise the committee. We offer them suggestions, and we give them a list of things that work really well, especially from the pilgrim perspective, because they'll get a dossier from the last World Youth Day about how they ran things, and they'll get counsel from the Vatican about different things. The Vatican has to approve all major decisions, but the Vatican and the last committee, they both see it from a bird's eye view. We see it from the ground, from the perspective of thousands of pilgrims who are coming, and what works, what doesn't work. And so we give our suggestions to them. The last time, the bishop in charge, who's now a Cardinal Americo from Lisbon, what he asked us right in the beginning, he said, don't tell me how to run it, but tell me what not to do. So we did that. We shot a video and gave him all the top 10 things not to do when you're running a World Youth Day. So it was a unique perspective on it, but we go to help counsel them on how, what works well and what doesn't.
Yeah. And so looking ahead to the future, I'm thinking that would be a good way to end the show with this, talking about Seoul, so South Korea. That's in 2027. What unique experience do you think South Korea offers to the World Youth Day experience?
So Korea, the Catholic Church in Korea is a very young church. As recently as 10, 15 years ago, 5% of the Koreans consider themselves Catholics. Now it's 10%. And has a lot to do with the fact that the Holy Father, Pope Francis, about 8 or 9 years ago, went to South Korea for Asian Youth Day. And since then, they've been trying to bring the World Youth Day to South Korea. Now it's finally coming, but not for a few more years. And given the Holy Father's age, very likely with a new Holy Father. And that's one of the considerations for delaying 4 years is just because no one says it, but it's going to happen sooner or later, and probably before then. But what will it be like? So it's a young church, and they built on the martyrs, the Korean martyrs. There were many, many, many Catholics martyred in Korea. And that, of course, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. So from that experience, we'll get to go and experience as young people and as leaders who are bringing young people, recent, in a sense, not like the early church, like the Roman martyrs, right, from the early centuries, but recent martyrs in a sense. So in the last, several centuries, but so very, very fresh, and a very young church. So there's a lot of zeal. There's also a lot of opportunity for understanding and catechesis for the young people of Korea to learn about the Catholic faith, because again, it's very new, and most Catholics over there now were not born into it. They've become Catholic.
Yeah, and so I'll just end with this. I highly recommend using JMJ to travel to South Korea. And so, how do people get started with JMJ? Is there a website?
Sure. Yeah. So the easiest way is to go to jmjyouth.com. And there's a link for World Youth Day 27. You just fill out your information. And yeah, World Youth Day is really our mission and our passion and everything we do. We live and breathe youth pilgrimages. But World Youth Day is really the pinnacle, the highlight of all of the youth pilgrimages we do, because so many come together at the same time. And as difficult, I know people who have looked at this and tried to do it before, and they say, I don't know how you do it. And I really don't know where the energy comes from, because leading up to the World Youth Day, it's working around the clock to make this work. And then through the World Youth Day, it's also same thing. But we absolutely love it, and it's really, really something that it's a gift that God has given us, this passion, and then we sleep a lot afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. And so I noticed that you probably also don't sleep a lot because you have other companies or other organizations. The one you sent me was scapular.com. Is that right? Did I say scapular.com right?
Plural, it's scapulars.com.
Scapulars. There we go.
Yeah.
So any other of those that you would like to tell to the viewers to go check out?
So what we're doing with scapulars.com, this started after 20 years of complaining about poor quality scapulars. So I finally redesigned it. Took a few years to get that done right, but we finally did. And now it's being very well received in the Catholic world. So we've been making and selling rosaries forever to raise money to take people to World Youth Day. So we have rosaries on there, and now bracelets, and we're starting jewelry. And it's becoming a larger platform. And we're going to call it Lifetime Catholic Gifts. That's the name that's coming in the new year. And the idea is that it will become a platform for, because the number one question we get from youth groups is, how do we raise money? What's the best way to raise money? So to become a virtual gift shop for any ministry, anywhere, to be able to use that and get 25% of all sales that go through immediately goes back to them. So it's a way to fundraise 24/7 without having to, without any risk. And so people have been begging for this and we're finally getting that portion of it up and running this Christmas season.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining the show. It was an excellent short show. I encourage everyone just to go to World Youth Day, experience it for yourself. You can't talk about the joy of World Youth Day is, so you have to go experience it for yourself. So thanks for coming on and telling us a little bit about JMJ and World Youth Day. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Michael. It was awesome.
Not of the modern world.
For
the modern
yes.
world. That's right.
Yeah,
Bishop Barron. Hello, it's from the airport. Hello, we're doing good. Nice to meet you.
So who are you, sir?
I'm Archbishop Joseph Nauman of the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas.
Yeah, do you want to bless this recorder? Is there a blessing for that?
There's a blessing for everything. So,
Yeah,
Lord, we ask you to bless this instrument and use it for good and for evangelization. Amen.